all over the world. Welcome to everybody. Okay, I think maybe we should get started. I'm Dave Waits. I'm here with Pia Sorensen. And this is our Science and Cooking lecture. It's part of our Science and Cooking class series at Harvard University at the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. And it's sponsored by Gastronomy Solutions, 1933, Escada, the Harvard MRSEC, Brad and Taylor, Shimadzu, and Samek. And today we're super lucky. We have Garima Arora. I'm really looking forward to this. I don't think we've had anybody talk about Indian culinary traditions before. I'm going to let Pia introduce her in a minute. But let me just start. Next slide, please, Pia. Yeah, so in our class, we always talk a little bit about what we do in our class. In our class, this week, we've started our projects. And so this is a big thing. Harvard students love to do projects. They're really good at it. It's a lot of fun. We like it too. But you too can take part in the projects. So let's go ahead, Pia. Yeah, so the task is, this is what the project should look like. In our class, we tell people, study and explain in scientific terms something about a recipe, something about culinary. We want to connect science with some culinary aspect of some culinary invention, some really cool dish. Provide a solution to a culinary problem, but explain it in scientific terms, how or why it solves a problem. Tell us something about the science. And we've talked a lot about this in our class, but we've also, in our series of lectures, we've sort of introduced a little bit about the science that goes along. So you too can do a project. And if you do one, we want you to submit it by December 2nd. So you have a little less than a month. Submit it to this email address. And you know, we promise we'll look at it, and the best projects, you'll receive something special. You'll receive the apron that commemorates our class. It's an apron with the equations of the week on it. So it reminds you about science and cooking. And you can get you'll get a copy of the textbook that goes, or the cookbook really. It's not a textbook, but it's a book, both of recipes and some science that we put together about this class. It combines recipes of the class and the science behind them. And so we'll give you a copy of both. And if you want, the book has just been released. If you'd like to get a signed copy by all the authors, Michael Brenner, Pia, and I, you can order one in this in the link. The link is in the chat. You can order from the Harvard Coop. If you order from the Harvard Coop, you get a signed copy of the book. And so please do submit a project. We're looking forward to looking at the projects. Okay, so up here, next slide. Yeah, so where do you find ideas? You know, look in cookbooks. Here's a variety of cookbooks, the Science of Cookbook, Hess and Blumenthal's cookbook. Look in any cookbook. Find something that you don't know what's going on. Ask questions about it. Find out what you can think about it. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to try new things. Next, yeah. How can food you eat every day be altered and improved? Explain it, but explain it the underlying science. Think about the food and think about the science. Or another thing is a recipe. If it's changed over time, why has it changed over time? How has it changed over time? And what is the result? How can we understand that from a scientific perspective, that it might have changed over time? Basically, find something that you can combine science and the recipe. So find a chef's recipe you really like, make it, understand it. Take a really cool recipe from one of the cookbooks and understand the science behind it. You know, what we always teach as part of doing good science is not only understanding the science, but learning how to ask the right questions. So this is part of it. Ask a question, ask a scientific question, and put something together and send it to us and win one of these prizes. So good luck, everybody. We hope you'll take part in it. So Pia, I think that you're going to talk about something that's maybe a little bit more germane to today's lecture, something a little bit of behind the science of it all. So Pia, go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. So in order to prepare you for Chef Garima's lecture, I'm just going to go back to the very basics, and I'm going to start by asking, what is food made of? And you all know that there's a very easy answer to this question. All you do is you go into your kitchen, you grab the closest food, and you take a look at the nutrition label. And there you can be reminded that food, of course, is made of fat, carbohydrates, proteins. And throughout this lecture series, we have talked about various ways that we can manipulate these ingredients, that the way they affect food, and overall how they're just changed when we cook food. There is one important ingredient that is not listed on nutrition labels, and that ingredient is all important, and it is water. And if you've been with us for a while, you know that water not only appears in all kinds of foods. Vegetables usually have 80% or more of water. Something like meat maybe has 60%. Even something as dry as flour has 15% water. So it's present in all kinds of foods. And it is really important for how we think about what happens to a food when we heat it or when we manipulate it in various ways. So these are kind of the four main ingredients or components of foods. But there is a very important thing that is not listed on nutrition labels. And the question is, what is it? And the answer is, of course, flavor. Flavor is not listed on nutritional labels. It's present in such minute quantities that there simply isn't enough of it to put it on there. But of course, it is extremely important. Without it, food would be boring, tasteless, uninteresting. We wouldn't care about the proteins and the carbohydrates if it weren't for that delicious flavor. And this begs the question, what is flavor? And this leads actually straight into Chef Garima's talk, because she's going to tell us about this. So without going too much into what else is going on there, I'm going to start by introducing our chef. So Chef Garima is the founder and chef of Gaa restaurant in Bangkok, Thailand. She was the first Indian female chef to gain a Michelin Star in 2018. She was pronounced Asia's best female chef in 2019 by the world's 50 best restaurant list. And she is known for really combining Indian cooking techniques with various Thai ingredients. And we're especially grateful to have her here with us today because she's opening several new, not one, several new restaurants this week. So please join me in welcoming Chef Garima.
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you for that, Pia. Thank you for that introduction. Hello there. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you, Pia, for making this all happen. Thank you, Harvard, for giving me an opportunity to share my experiences with the cuisines of India and and ideas on Indian food and what makes it so special. And I don't just mean the flavor, the spice, the ingredients. Those definitely are some of the highlights of our cuisine. And I will give them the due in the next 35 to 40 minutes. But today I would like to tickle your scientific curiosity a little bit into why Indian food tastes the way it does. Why Indian food makes so many people so darn happy around the world. I certainly enjoy eating it, and I guess I've thought a little bit about why I do and why people around me do. So hopefully we can talk a little bit about that in the next 30 minutes or so. A little bit about me for people who, of course, I see there are people from all over the world. I don't think you would have had a chance to come and eat at Gaa, especially in these circumstances, but I hope I get to meet all of you in person someday. But meanwhile, I will just tell you a little bit about myself before we get into the meat of the whole thing. So I'm an Indian cook. I was born in Hyderabad in India. So I'm an Indian cook. living in Bangkok. I'm classically trained in French cuisine. I earned my stripes cooking in the kitchens in Dubai and for the most part in Scandinavia. And yeah, professionally, I've led a pretty nomadic life, so to speak. In the past 12 years or so, I have worked in many kitchens around the world in as many different countries as possible, in as many countries my passport would allow me to. Sometimes legally, sometimes a little in the gray area, but I did it all for the experience. And I think my travels have shaped my professional life to a great extent, and the way I cook to a large extent as well. I was 22 when I left home, uh, Mumbai, to study culinary arts in Paris, and I haven't called India home since. And I must say, I do miss it. Anyway, Paris was a great choice for a vegetarian like me. I used to be a vegetarian when I left India. You know, a lot of us are heavy vegetable eaters and not so much meat. So I used to be a vegetarian, and yeah, Paris was a great choice for that. Now I eat everything. Now I will eat anything that walks, crawls, slithers even. Uh, the first day of culinary school, which was less than 24 hours of my first time in France, my first month of attempting to learn the language, my chef professor took me to the market, well, took us to the market, um, a Parisian market where I ate my first oyster, bought my first steak of horse meat. I also tried my first escargot, all in 24 hours of my last humble meal of dal and rice. So gastronomically speaking, it was a life-changing 24 hours. I talk about this experience particularly because you must understand, growing up in the 90s in India, we had very limited access to imported ingredients in food. You know, my exposure to international cuisines was, well, next to nothing. I mean, we didn't even have a McDonald's in India up until 98 or 2000s even. I mean, I'm not making that a standard, uh, but I mean, I think I was pretty much in my teens when I ate my first Mek Aloo Tikki. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, a Mek Aloo Tikki, but if you ever make your way to India, you must try it. Anyway, I think it was up until 1993 when India was a closed economy where foreign trade was kept to a minimum. We had very heavy restrictions on import. So in an atmosphere like this, you know, international food and flavors and ingredients were not easy to come by. But my hero, my dad, he would travel a lot for work, and he would travel abroad a lot for work and bring back all these amazing cookbooks from the Middle East, Italy, Turkey, what have you. And he would recreate these dishes uh, with ingredients available in, you know, our humble Indian kitchen. You know, we ate ajwain, which is carom seeds. If you've ever tried that, ajwain is closest it comes to having oregano. So we would use ajwain on our pizzas. We would use South Indian rice to cook risotto, because of course risotto rice wasn't available. We use naan breads to make pizza bases. You know, a sprinkle of chili for my mom on our first coq au vin also happened. That was always a given. There always had to be chili flakes on the side. But it was always a challenge to think what can be replaced in the recipe locally to make it taste how he wanted to. I think this resourcefulness and this adaptability that Indian cuisine and Indian ingredients offers stuck with me as a kid. And together with spending time in some of the top kitchens of the world, it has given me the ability to twist on its head and rethink my approach to Indian cuisine and cuisines of India. And I say cuisines of India because it's very difficult to unify it under one umbrella and call it Indian cuisine. It's so vast and so diverse. And I think that could be a lecture by itself for a couple of hours. So I'm not going to get into that at this time. I did always used to be a cook. I used to be a journalist. I studied to be one, even worked as one. Uh, I realized I couldn't write for long without thinking about my next meal and the grocery list to cook it. Again, I go back to my childhood in the 90s. You know, of course, as time passes, people evolve, societies evolve. But in the 90s, growing up a girl in India sometimes comes with, you know, it comes with its own set of expectations. I mean, I have no problem with that. I'm not one to scoff at tradition and family and values of so many generations, but there's a certain set of expectations that come with being a girl, and a step away from it was not always encouraged back then. I guess of course, that was a long time ago, it's almost 20 years ago, but yeah, it was, we were more set in our ways back home than we are today. But I have a father, I have a dad who has always been way ahead of his times. And, this is a question I get a lot, being Indian, being a woman, how did I get here? How did I manage all of this? And I have to give him credit for that, because, he told me once, don't expect me to pay for your wedding, but I will pay for all the education you will ever want and need. So when things weren't working out as a journalist, I told him I wanted to go to Paris and study culinary arts. So he paid for me to pack my bags and move to Paris. He also paid for my wedding later, though, but he did pay for that education that he had always promised me. I mean, talking about my father, I think I really want to mention this one story, and I always say this to the women employees in my company. My niece, someday my daughter, I guess. I always enjoyed, again, in the 90s, India was a very different place than it is today. Money was always limited, resources were limited. I'm sorry, just losing 1 second. So everything was always limited in back home. But I always loved eating out, and so did my dad. He used to take us to amazing restaurants and have us taste new ingredients. Sorry about that. I guess there was a little disturbance back there. Sorry, I just have to mute again. Sorry, I was telling about the story about my dad. So, he took me to dinner at this 5-star hotel when I was all of 13 or 14 years old. He, it was the restaurant Souk at the Taj Mahal Palace in Mumbai. And we had an amazing meal. We had an amazing evening. And of course, I enjoyed it. And, when we got out, he looked at me and he said, "Did you enjoy your evening?" And I said, "Oh, yes, of course I did." And then he said, "Do you know how much the bill was?" And of course, I hadn't even thought about it. And he showed me the bill. And he said that if this is how you want to eat every night of the month, this is how much you should earn for yourself. And I think that was a great, he doesn't even remember this. He's always so full of these wise words. He doesn't remember him telling me this, but I think it stuck with me. And the importance of education and economic independence for women, I think, is extremely important. And I learned this from my father. So I have to say that he has a lot to do with how I ended up here so many years later. So I went to Paris. I studied culinary arts. I worked at a bakery for a couple of months. Wasn't very good at it. Baking is not my strongest suit even today. I do enjoy it occasionally, but yeah, I always have trouble staying in the confines of a recipe. I think I'm more of a free spirit like that. So I worked in a bakery in Paris. 6 months later, I figured baking probably was not for me. I left. I was happy to go. They were happy to see me go. And I found my way to the savory side of things. I got my first internship, my first paid job in Dubai at a restaurant by Gordon Ramsay. And that was the beginning. And yeah, I just fell in love with cooking and the kitchen and the adrenaline and the shared camaraderie and the fights and the high tension. I mean, I'm Indian, I love the drama. So yes, of course, I enjoyed spending time in the kitchen. I did spend a couple of years in Dubai and then moved to, I guess, what was the pivotal point in my career, to Copenhagen, and worked at Noma. I think till about that time, I knew that I probably wanted to cook French food, and I wanted to have a French restaurant, and I wanted to earn my stars cooking French food. And when I got to Noma, I think it changed me forever. It changed me not only as a cook, but also as a person. I think I understood the importance of who we are as people, our own personal history, our own personal heritage, where we come from, and doing justice to that. I guess when I saw, uh, the chefs at Noma create magic with such limited produce that was available in Scandinavia, it made me reflect to how much bounty of ingredients we had back home in India, and how little we were doing with it, how little we were doing to showcase its magic and its capabilities. And I think that got me thinking, and I guess that was the point I understood that I wanted to do. I wanted to cook Indian food, and I wanted to cook it in a way which made it more relevant, and 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 made it to a standard where everybody around the world would understand that there is so much to take away from that cuisine. So I have to thank my chefs at Nomad, to Renee, and this incredible ecosystem they have built, which gives a chef the tools to think through it for themselves, their own journey as a cook. I think that's tremendous to say for a place, for a restaurant. Well, I did spend a couple of years at Noma, and I was ready to come back to India, follow a boy. That was my then boyfriend, now husband. We wanted to be together, so I thought, okay, it's time to wrap up and go back to India, to Mumbai. And I got a call from a chef who was looking to open a restaurant in Mumbai. And of course, I packed my bags, and he invited me to come to Bangkok first, spend a couple of months, and then set up a restaurant for him in India. So I did move to Bangkok, and honestly, a month later, I was in love with Bangkok. Not more than my husband, but I was in love with Bangkok. It was an eye opener. I think the similarities between the cuisines of both countries, India and Thailand, the influence of Indian culinary traditions on Thai food, its own amazing ingredients, its own indigenous ingredients, and the way they cook, making Indian techniques as the basis. I thought that was incredible, and I had never experienced it in my past holidays to Thailand, because I guess when you come as a tourist, it's very different from when you're actually professionally working in a city. And a couple of months later, I found out the restaurant in India was not going to happen. And of course, I made it look like I was unhappy about that, but on the inside, I was happy to stay back in Bangkok. And I met my then investors, and I had already known them for a couple of months, and they asked me if I would want to stay back and just do a restaurant in Bangkok, which I agreed to, and that's how Gaa happened. It happened pretty fast. It was a couple of months, and Gaa was open, and I guess with the naivety of youth, you kind of jump into things without thinking about it too much, and I'm glad I did. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But if today I were to do that, I would think it through a couple of times. But at that time, I just jumped in, and it's like, sure, I'm going to do a restaurant in a city I've lived for 3 months. I don't speak the language. I barely know anybody, but sure, I'm going to do a restaurant there. But luckily, Gaa happened because I met some amazing people on the way. People who are still part of the team today, 5 years later, are still part of the team and are now good friends for life. That's how Gaa happened. And of course, while cooking at Gaa, I think the first time when you open a restaurant, and I maybe cooks out there may agree with me, maybe they wouldn't, but the first time you open a restaurant, the first day, the way your food tastes, it will never taste the same after that. As time goes, a month later, a year later, 5 years later, you keep evolving, you keep changing, you keep finding your stride, your style, your motions, so to speak. And that's what happened to us at Gaa as well. We started cooking a certain way, but found that instinctively, we were moving in another direction. And one of these days when we were in the kitchen trying to figure things out, we stumbled upon this fluke discovery of negative food pairing, and how it is so essential to Indian food and the cuisines of India. I will get to that, and before I delve into it, into this personal discovery of negative food pairing, maybe we talk a little bit about how we actually taste food. I mean, physiologically. Simply put, we taste with a combination of our taste buds and our nose. Of course, temperature matters, texture does, even the amount of food in one bite does. You ever had a spoonful of wasabi on a dare? It's a good lesson in how a little goes a long way. A pinch of wasabi would make for a very pleasurable experience, but a spoonful will only give pleasures to those perverse audience around you, and I know this from experience. uh, Taste, I think let's break it down like this. Taste is perceiving ingredients and sensations produced thereby using our palate, our taste buds, our tongue, whatever you want to call it. Fragrance is smell perceived through the nose. Flavor is a combination of these two. So flavor is both taste and smell. Having said this, how do we actually perceive flavor? Uh, how does taste and smell work together to give you flavor, whether it's sweet, sour, spicy, buttery, umami, whatever have you? Of course, the taste part of flavor is perceived on the tongue. Different parts of the tongue are more perceptive to certain flavors. In fact, it was for the longest time believed that certain parts of your tongue could taste only certain flavors. That's proven to be untrue now, as things often go these days. Everything we know to be true suddenly is twisted on its head. So for the longest time, we believed that only certain parts of the tongue could taste certain flavors, but not anymore. Sweet, sour, bitter, and savory tastes can actually be sensed by all parts of the tongue. Only the sides of the tongue are more sensitive than the middle. This is true of all tastes, with actually just one exception: the back of your tongue. The back of the tongue is very sensitive to bitter taste. This is to protect us so that we can spit out poisonous or spoiled food and substances before they actually enter the throat and are consumed and swallowed by the person. Taste buds alone are not enough to fully perceive flavor. Uh, let's talk about the smell part of flavor for a minute here. When you get a cold, Pia did a very, very funny experiment just before we got online when she held her nose and I think she tried to eat an olive and realized that how little of the olive you taste when you're not smelling. Goes to show smell is an important part of tasting, or is an important as taste in perception of flavors. Some research has also shown that it's almost 80% in perception of flavor. That's a lot. So smelling is actually 80% of how you taste. It boggles the mind when you think about it like that. In any case, everything you eat and drink has certain aroma compounds. These aroma compounds are actually chemical compounds, which are sufficiently volatile or crazy to be transported to the upper part of your nose. And that's how you fully perceive flavor, that is taste and smell both. So flavor compounds are present in all food and all wine. And when they carry to the upper part of the nose, that's when we are able to really identify the flavor. So like I said, it's a combination of both your tongue and your nose, but mostly just the nose. If you take it a step further, because we are here and might as well see the thought through as it will come up later in our talk. The next pertaining question would be, why do we prefer certain flavors over others? Is it because, well, I could follow this question with a question, but I guess moving in favor of time, it is because food and flavor generates in a person an emotional response. Even in our daily language, you have words, you have idioms like a bitter pill to swallow. Talk about sour grapes. We have an idiom in Hindi where an ignorant monkey cannot savor the complexity of a ginger pickle. We find descriptions of taste are very often associated with strong emotions. They express in words states of intense pleasure, displeasure, likes, dislikes. For example, eating a savory dish is always a very pleasant emotion because this is a signal that the food that you're eating is rich in protein. It's comforting, it's nutritious, and your body instinctively knows that. I say this because I want to drive home the idea that our response to food, flavor, aroma is for most part instinctive. Instincts that have been built through evolution and social learning, both. And when we are so busy and going about daily life, we forget to listen to these instincts and forget to notice how much we eat with instinct. And instinct, again, I will tie it up all together, I promise, with Indian food very soon. Bear with me, please. So if every ingredient has an aroma compound, has a certain smell, I guess it stands to reason that ingredients that have more compounds in common or have more similar smells will pair better together because, well, they smell better together. And it's true. This is what is called food pairing. And funnily enough, while solely by chance, I stumbled into the world of negative food pairing, another chef many, many years ago stumbled into food pairing itself in a very similar fashion. Of course, there is no comparison in his achievements and mine, and also we have very different accents, but there was a fated tin of caviar involved both times. And the chef was Chef Heston Blumenthal. His restaurant, The Fat Duck, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I believe probably was the most famous restaurant at that time, wildly successful. It still is. Impossible to get a table there. As successful as Chef Blumenthal was, I guess there was one question that was always playing in his mind, and I guess it has been written about a lot. And if you read his books, he has talked about it as well. Why do some ingredients taste better together or work good together? The story goes, he was trying to figure out what would go well with caviar. Many years, very similar situation happened to us at Gaa as well. I'll get to that. And on a whim, he reached for a piece of white chocolate. He just put it together in his mouth, and just crammed it together in his mouth, and that's it. Everything played in slow motion after that. The sweetness of the chocolate, the saltiness of the caviar, dramatic music in the background, very, very Bollywood-like, but he put these two ingredients together by chance. The combination was great itself, and it actually went on to become one of the best known dishes on his restaurant's menu. And he realized that that was not the only pairing that he had stumbled upon by chance. There were a lot of these combinations that he was putting together, like I believe dark chocolate and blue cheese was also one of them. I guess his bacon ice cream was also a very famous one. So he although he was putting these things together, he didn't know why were they working when instinctively they were not supposed to. Like, nobody in culinary history had put these ingredients together, and why had they not, and why was he able to, and why was it working so well? So not knowing, I think it's not a good color on a chef. It's a very chef-like quality to always get to the bottom of something. Not knowing is not good enough. Not knowing how many people are booked for dinner, not knowing how many grams of sugar goes into the recipe. God forbid, not knowing what's in the walk-in, this could get somebody fired. Not knowing why my dough didn't prove the way it was supposed to. That's it. Like a half-decent cook could not accept that, not knowing why things were working the way they were or they are. And of course, this is Heston Blumenthal, one of the best chefs of our times. So of course, he wanted to know more, and he turned to, I believe, of course, a very famous name again in the food science world, Francois Benzi, a regular guest, I believe, at his restaurant, and also a food scientist and a perfume maker. And then he turned to him to investigate this combination of food in a more scientific way, or give it a more scientific perspective. So Francois went to work, and he did what he did with all these, I guess, whatever food scientists do. And he came back with an extraordinary finding that these two ingredients had the same exact base aroma. And that is why they were working so well together. And I guess together, Blumenthal and Benzi came up with, I don't know, the fighter jet of the culinary world, a stealth weapon, if you would, that would forever skew the odds in the favor of the chef. They uncovered the key to coming up with new flavor combinations to excite people's palates. They came up with so many more combinations thereafter. I believe tomatoes and vanilla was one of them. Salmon and licorice was another one of them. So they came up with this theory of what we now know as food pairing, that ingredients go well together when they have the same primary aroma components. And this, I guess, was probably as far as food goes, or cooking goes, or culinary expertise goes, probably the discovery of the century for us to be able to put in words and explain why things work the way they do, why ingredients work the way they do, was, I think, phenomenal. So researchers around the world use this basis as a starting point and applied it to the history of food, or rather what we already knew about food. They found that throughout the world, especially in Western cuisine, ingredients in any given recipe will duplicate flavor compounds. Example, we know the classic combination of strawberry and chocolate. It's because, they share roasted aromas together. Strawberry also works with cheese because they have cheesy aromas in common. Basil, because it also does have citrus aromas in common. But more recently, experimentative chefs are now pushing the boundaries and coming up with, more crazy combinations. This is the story of food pairing. And let me just circle back here to so many years later. For dramatic effect, let's just say same time, same day of the week, I don't know, 15, 20 years later, we were in the kitchen wondering exactly what to do with caviar. We had just discovered the local caviar produced in Thailand, and we got a first tin. And, we wanted to do something new and different. And on a whim, with that delivery, actually, we got some strawberries, and we got a bunch of howar. Howar is a citrusy herb from the northern part of Thailand. And, all these ingredients were sitting together, and, we tasted the caviar. I'm like, oh, it's nice, it's nutty. It was me, a couple of other chefs around me. And on a whim, we picked up the strawberry, and the howar, the herb, had left its citrusy notes on the strawberry already. And we just ate a bite of the strawberry while I still had some caviar in my mouth, and bam, same slow motion, same music, very dramatic. And this moment transpired where we're like, this works, and how and why is this working? This is such an unusual combination. So we started looking at our entire menu, and we realized that we were pairing pork floss with burnt coconut sugar ice cream. We were pairing liver with longans. Longan is a fruit, very similar to lychee notes. We were pairing corn with black salt. Black salt is a highly sulfur forward salt from the Himalayas in India. We were pairing avocado with curry leaf. And these are combinations that should not work, but they were working. And we were like, why? How does this work? And of course, we started, like I said, not knowing is not an option. We started digging and came across Heston and Francois' story and figured that must be it. We must be doing what these guys did so many years ago, and everybody around the world was doing it in any case, pairing food, and food pairing is an accepted and normal thing. I reached out to a friend at a local university who is also studying food science, and shared the story and told her that we discovered caviar works with strawberry and hawar, and chefs around the world were doing the same thing, and we were excited about it. And she mentioned that they actually don't have a lot of aroma compounds in common, and what we were doing was actually not food pairing, but it was actually negative food pairing. And I was like, what? Chefs around the world are basing their menus of the theory of food pairing, and they're playing molecular matchmakers as it were. And you're saying we've got it all backwards. Like we couldn't be that bad. Come on, So I look up negative food pairing, and I think then I have a moment which is so profound and moving that it can only happen when you realize that the privileges that you have been extended because of the complete coincidences in your life, and where you were born and who you were born to, and it was quite a transcending moment, I have to say. When I understood that my entire Indian heritage, that I had never given as much importance in my cooking, because I was always trying to, you know, do something more modern, more unique, more different. But I had not realized that it was my Indian heritage all these years and all this time that was giving me the tools to do just that. And everything that I was doing instinctively was actually scientifically backed. And I guess there was a whole newfound respect for my food, my culture, my history. So during my research, I found another culinary matchmaker in India. And yeah, we have a lot of matchmakers in India, but this one was a culinary one. Dr. Ganesh Bagler. I would encourage all of you to really look him up and read his work. It's heavy reading, but he has also written some more easy to read work for people with less scientific background like myself. So Dr. Ganesh is known for his research in computational gastronomy and emerging data science of food, flavors, and as well health. In India, whenever we put ingredients and food together, health is an important part of it, at least traditionally speaking. So by blending food with data and computation, he has helped establish the foundations of this niche area. Starting with investigations of food pairing in Indian cuisine, his lab has contributed numerous studies exploring negative food pairing in Indian cuisine, its impact on health, and also, the medicinal wonders it extends to people who follow it. He, I think, is the Francois Benze of India, who let his love for food direct him in this journey of understanding the cuisines of India better and what really makes them delicious. His earlier works include a co-authored paper at the Indian Institute of Technology at Jodhpur, where him and his colleague put, I believe, around 2,500 standard recipes from a famous Indian cook to the test. So I guess before you begin a research, you need data which is put in a particular order. So they went online, and a very famous Indian cook called Tarla Dalal, her recipes, they downloaded them and they put it to the test. They explored the aroma compounds in common within the ingredients of each recipe and found that Indian food simply steers away from general assumptions of food pairing theory, meaning the ingredients used in standard Indian recipes have very few to sometimes no flavor compounds in common, yet they seem to be used rampantly throughout the Indian subcontinent. And they did a little further study and found that it was just not the Indian subcontinent, but also in other Asian cuisines. I think that solidified for a lot of other researchers the connection between Indian food and the rest of the Asian peninsula. While food pairing theory suggests that flavor combinations, we all know that they work well together. We found that, well, researchers in India found that these flavor combinations really appear more in cuisines of North America and Western European cultures. In Asian cultures, including India, we tend to avoid pairing ingredients with common flavors. Indian food breaks all the traditional rules of food pairing. The molecules in Indian food clash dramatically, and many more ingredients and flavors are used in any given dish compared to Western dishes. I mean, you could put together a simple pasta and it would have 2 or 3 ingredients, but if you were to put together a simple Indian meal cooked at home, it would at least be 10 to 15 different ingredients. That alone increases the probability of negative aroma compounds working together. Further research has actually now made it fairly common knowledge, at least among the food researchers in India and the elites, that it is the spices in Indian food that define its unique characteristic, but also that it's the biggest reason why Indian food breaks all the rules of food pairing theory. In fact, researchers go on to state that the strongest ever detected and recorded negative food pairing instances and patterns come across only in Indian cooking. This means that not only do Indian recipes not contain ingredients with similar taste, but they purposely push the boundaries by including contrasting ingredients together, which have no shared flavor compounds. Although the spices used in Indian cooking don't follow the same rules as, I guess, the ingredients and spices and flavoring used in the Western Hemisphere, it's exactly this rebellious nature of Indian cooking and Indian food that gives it its very unique and distinctive flavor. The fact that we don't put things which are supposed to work together is why it actually works together. A lot like an arranged marriage. You know, you just push ingredients together and they'll figure it out. And most of the time it works. I mean, to give you an example, if you've ever cooked Indian food, you would always start with a ginger garlic paste. Ginger garlic paste is so essential to cooking in not all parts of India, mind you, but in especially in the north, it really is. Spices in spices in food is used for flavor, imparting pungency, adding color back home. But ginger garlic paste forms the basis of building flavors from. They also have additional medicinal properties, antimicrobial, antioxidant, nutritional. Ginger is one of the most important and most widely used spices in the world. I guess since ancient times, used for medicinal properties as well, for healthcare. The flavor characteristics of gingers are attributed to, of course, its volatile aromatic compounds, of which major constitutes are, there are words I cannot pronounce. So there are these very scientific sounding flavor compounds in ginger, and garlic, on the other hand, has more sulfur forward compounds, and they have very little in common. Using ginger in a recipe and using garlic in a recipe will provide a very different result than putting them together as a ginger garlic paste, and your end result is going to be very different. And when they come together, it's like I said, it's very unique, and it's a very different use of both ingredients, and it forms the basis of any Indian cooking, at least in the north. Chaat masala, I don't know whether you guys have ever tried it. If you've ever walked to the streets of India and had chaat, which is the sweet, sour, savory, tangy tasting food, street food. It contains amchur, which is dry mango powder, cumin, dry coriander, ginger, black salt, asafoetida, which is the bark of a very, again, sulfur-rich tree, chili powder. None of these ingredients share any base aroma compounds in common, but I will challenge you to find a more satisfying umami-rich salt. It just works put together really, really well. So having identified the hero of our negative food pairing story, spices, let me tell you how we actually use it. I have here on paper somewhere, a spice box, a masala dabba. This is what we call it. I'm gonna try to do this, guys. So this is what it looks like. I wonder if you guys can see it. Now this masala dabba is from my home kitchen. I have a much bigger one in my restaurant kitchen. I have it here, but I'll just show you how big it is. This is from the Gaa restaurant. It has, let's see. Well, I guess I have to show it to you guys because I want to explain to you why they're both different. Have a look. This is what the spice box from the restaurant looks like, and you compare it to the one that I have from home. The size is very different, and you can see it. We have different kind of spices. Here you have red chili, cardamom, mace, black salt. We have a little bit of sambar masala, which is used to make this curry from down south. You have fenugreek leaves. You have chaat masala as well. You have some dry spices. Just give me a second. Let me put this away. All right. Super heavy. All right. The reason I'm showing you this masala dabba is this masala dabba is the key to any Indian cook's repertoire. And no two boxes are the same. I mean, I wanted to show it to you guys, but it's really heavy. And you will see that even though sometimes spices may be doubled up. I mean, for example, I have a sambar powder in I'm sorry, as you can't see it. Sorry. So I have a sambar powder in my home masala dabba. I have one in my kitchen masala dabba as well, if it's from the restaurant. We try to use it to pair it with the chicken liver and some other ingredients, but they are very different because the one in my home dabba, masala dabba, is uh, made by another cook who comes and cooks for me every day, and then the one in the restaurant is of course made by chefs at the restaurant. So my point is that no two masala dabbas will ever be the same. And even though you have similar spices, each recipe is different because every masala is started from scratch. So if you were adding cinnamon, cardamom, mace, and uh, uh, red chili, we will add it in different quantities. The way you would do it in your home, or the way your mother taught you, or your mother-in-law taught you, or your dad taught you, whoever taught you this would, somebody would have a little bit more cinnamon, the other one would have a little bit more chili. And like I said, when all these ingredients are not the same and they're not duplicating their aroma compounds, their flavors, the resulting masala is also very different. And honest to God, no two dals in anybody's home taste the same. No two sabji or vegetables at any two home taste the same. And uh, and and to me, to the large extent, that is the beauty of cooking with these spices, because every home would cook differently. Uh, Now, each of these spices plays a very important role in layering the dish. Like I said, you may start with ginger garlic paste. You may then put in a little bit of cumin. You may skip it. I may put it. You put a little bit of red chili powder, a little bit of turmeric, and you are layering on aroma compounds which have nothing in common. Yet, when you eat your final dal, sabji, or vegetable, or whatever have you, I'm not going to say curry. If you're waiting for me to say curry, I'm not going to say it because it does not exist. We don't have anything called curry back home. So, your dal or whatever you have, you're layering these to make this perfectly balanced dish in the end. Also, there is no recipe. In India, we never follow recipes when we cook. There are no spoons, there are no weighing scales. Indian cooks, especially at home, will season with their hands. It's called andaz. And this word andas, it means in your own style, is the unique style of every cook, or is every cook has a style unique to them. And this is the instinct they use to cook with. It is inbuilt in them as young cook. This creates a very personal palette or a very personal repertoire that will stay with them forever. It does evolve, with social experiences, with more cooking. It evolves with age as well. Your mom taught, like I said, your mom taught you a certain way. Your grandmother teaches you another way. Your mother-in-law might say, this is not how you do it. This is how I like to do it. But all the while you're building your flavor repertoire and your palate repertoire. This instinct that Indian cooks have to use ingredients that have no flavor compounds in common, I think is the biggest arsenal we have in our bag. We can go into a situation and put together things that honestly nobody would think to put together. And the idea is to harness this instinct a little bit more. And that's what we do at Gaa. And that's what we realized we were doing at Gaa. And having studied and read a little bit about negative food pairing, having spoken to Dr. Ganesh Bagler at length about why we were cooking the way we do, that is what I realized, that having seen my mom just, easily flow through one spice to the other, build up these flavors, see my grandmother cook like that, it stuck with me. This instinct was inbuilt in me somewhere to just go in, understand the ingredients for what they are, understanding base aromas very naturally, because spices are nothing but aromas, to be honest, and putting them together. And this masala dabba, these spices, as much as one tries to, when Indian cooks try to make something modern and something unique and something different, try to steer away from it. I think the key is to actually go back to them and understanding why we use them, how we use them, and putting a little bit more thought and intelligent thought into these the use of our techniques. Both India and China have influenced Asian cuisine to a large extent, I think. A lot of mixing and stirring has happened. We have taken techniques from China, given it to Thailand, taken from Malaysia, passed it over to China, you know, with the Silk Route and the spice route. Flavors of India travel to the rest of Asia. With the spread of Buddhism as well, with the spread of religion, eating habits, ingredient techniques made their way throughout the Asian peninsula. Our imperial past has a lot to do with it as well. The British Navy paid, I read the story somewhere online, the British Navy paid a courtesy visit to Tokyo in 1910, and the fleet was ordered to host the Japanese naval officers on board for Friday lunch, and they made curry, which is not Indian, it's British. The Japanese loved it, and they instructed their cooks to take the recipe before, you know, the ship sailed away, and it became so beloved by the Japanese that they actually let out a commercial contract to a company to make and reproduce this curry flavor, and it has been part of their cuisine ever since, and it is so popular all over Japan today. My point is that Indian food has I'm sorry, guys, I think I'm maybe going over time. I'm not sure. Sorry. So my point is that Indian food has a very strong influence on its neighboring region in the past. It is filled with techniques, ingredients, food-related crafts, customs that after a point stopped in its spread solely because of our inability to document and categorize them. For example, the way the French did it. The French made their cuisine the basis of all neo-food experiments around the world. I believe that this newfound scientific curiosity, if applied to Indian food, could help us carve all tools and resources we need to come of age and give this part of the world a culinary shakeup and make all our traditions and past history relevant to diners today. Because after all, I think change, you know, is the only constant, and evolution of our cuisine is the only way forward. And I hope Indian cuisine can one day, someday, very soon, begin this food revolution in the rest of Asia as well. I guess, guys, I think my time is running out. I will wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions or anything for me.
You're totally fine. I have the feeling you could just keep, I've been glued to this story. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Well, I know I talked a lot. I tried to show some stuff, but yeah, well, I had a lot to say.
Awesome. And you have plenty of time, so don't worry about that. We do have some questions. Yes, and we have lots of comments that this was fantastic and amazing. Thank you, guys. So let's see, there is a question from Joseph Heisler, who's wondering if you've ever developed a flavor wheel for Indian ingredients that contrast well together. Like, have you kind of systematized this?
That's your flavor wheel right there. I'm sorry, I've got turmeric on my laptop now, but this is it. I think as far as even visually, it's like a wheel. And it's funny you said that, a flavor wheel. This is just what it is. I think the key is, like I said, to categorize it and put it down so cooks and you know, professional cooks and home cooks around the world can understand Indian cuisine a little bit better. The reason that I guess the scientific aspect or the part of Indian food that is thought through is not very well explained and cannot eloquently be put in a concise way to be able to explain to people is because we have never written these things down. We are working with instincts still. And yes, in that attempt, in that direction, we did form a non-profit organization in India last year called Food Forward India. And with this non-profit organization, our attempt is just this, to give a more scientific, curiosity-driven direction to Indian food, and also to catalog and put down our history at the same time, and not forget where we came from. Yeah, I really believe that a little bit more scientific approach to Indian food will open up so many different techniques for everybody.
Great. And I saw there was a question about where to add your questions. So for those of you in the audience, there's a little Q&A button in the lower part of your screen where you can add questions. And there are lots of them, so it may not end up being asked, but ask away. So there's a question here from Duleka Rai Rai. Can you please share any negative experiments? Have you had any fails in these food pairings?
Oh my God, so many. We've had so many. Yeah. Oh God. So right now we're 4 days away from reopening, like Pia said in the beginning, 4 different restaurants. So we're gonna have, of course, Gaa is our fine dining restaurant, and we've always done a lot of R&D for it, and it's very structured and formatted the way we do our research for Gaa. But this time we are doing a more casual restaurant. So it's a modern Indian breakfast canteen and a wine bar by night. And of course, even though it's easy and casual food, we always want to give it something extra, bring, a surprise in terms of flavor, a surprise in terms of texture, temperature. I guess I'm digressing a little bit, but I guess I'll say my point that, when I go out to eat, I like to be surprised. You know, that feeling when you eat something for the very first time, that the way people's eyes light up, the way it brings you joy, the way your mind is thinking at the same time, your palate is reacting, you're smelling, and you're like, what's going on? I guess those are the moments I chase in as a diner and as a cook as well. So we do a lot of R&D trying to get there. And yeah, we've had some very nasty experiences in the kitchen as well. I think what I'm just thinking about, we tried an ice cream which all of us just spat out right away. I can't remember what it was. Oh, but yeah, it has happened quite a lot.
What do you recommend for those of us who don't have the Indian culinary instincts? How do we explore our food pairings? Do you just try?
I guess the fact, like I said, since there is no scientific way to approach this, the only way to do it is to cook more. I guess to hone those instincts, because we all have it. I guess. I mean, we all have the same nose, and if we as Indians can instinctively put spices together to balance it out, anybody who does it for a little bit longer will be able to do it as well. So I guess the best way to learn Indian cooking is to keep cooking and find your balance as you go along.
That's a good answer. Let's see, there's so many questions. What about oh, there's so many, sorry. So there was one question which I was pretty intrigued by from Maria Jose Fernandez asking, I'm from Mexico and I think that our cuisine is similar to India's in terms of flavor combinations from contrasting ingredients. I've never studied it as negative food pairing, but do you know anything about this?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I find so many similarities in the way flavors are put together in Indian cuisine and in Mexican, especially the use of acidity in both cuisines is very unique, and not a lot of other cuisines duplicate that acidity. And I'm a big fan of acidity in food, so I think you have it right there. Negative food pairing has not been applied to since it's such a new concept, a new idea, and was started by or was discovered by Dr. Ganesh Bagler. He did apply his findings to certain Asian cuisines, but if you notice during my talk, I mentioned North America but left out South America specifically for this reason, because people and researchers believe that a lot of negative food pairing would appear in recipes in that part of the world. Yes, I would imagine, yes.
What are your thoughts on combining Indian flavors with Western cuisine? Do you have any guiding thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely. I do that sometimes. I mean, like I said, I'm classically trained in French cuisine. So, of course, a lot of techniques I tap into are also from that part of the world. I think my advice would be to stick to one spice when you're trying to work with ingredients from the West or some techniques from that part of the world, layering always doesn't work because it's enough. There's enough complexity in the ingredients and the technique that you already have at hand. I would stick with one spice and let that be the high note in your recipe or in your flavor that you're looking for. So, for example, if you were to, I don't know, do foie gras, I'm thinking, because well, we're doing chicken liver with Madras curry at the moment in the kitchen. We find that when it's too many spices and something which is traditionally an ingredient or not native to us, it makes a lot of disturbance. It doesn't dwell, and then you have to tweak your spices a little bit for it to, have a smooth and a more luxurious finish in the mouth. So I would suggest stick to one spice when combining things.
Good advice. A more specific question. There's a question about the combination of foods served together in Rajasthan.
Sorry, what's that again?
In Rajasthan.
Rajasthan, what about it?
Any comments on the combination of foods and flavors served there?
I mean, Rajasthan is one part of India. Like I said, I always call it cuisines of India. I never say Indian cuisine. And cuisines of India is just so that every part is so different from the other. Rajasthan is very close to Gujarat, Gujarat is a primarily vegetarian state, and Rajasthan is just up north where a lot of meat is consumed, and especially in the border between the two states is one of the most amazing culinary magic happening, where you have these techniques of the Gujaratis, which is some of my favorite snacks and favorite techniques, and we use a lot of the Gujarati techniques in our food, combines with the meats of Rajasthan. So yeah, I think it's extremely, and also it's a desert. It's primarily just desert in that part of India. So a lot of herbs used in the food, a lot of acidic herbs, a lot of leaves and vegetables that otherwise, when they grow in sparse water, in little water, have very earthy and very distinctive taste. So India is endless like that. With Food Forward India, we found when we go, the idea is to go to each state and look at it from an urban, rural, and tribal perspective, and try to highlight how the three contrasting sections of that state eat. And it's the most amazing ingredients we come up with or come across are in the tribes and in the villages of the state.
And I have a question here on specifics. So most of us can't travel to your restaurant right now, but could you give an example of what's a good example of how you're combining Thai and Indian techniques and ingredients?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of my the dish that got us to a negative food pairing was strawberry caviar and hovor. Hovor is, like I said, the citrusy herb from the northern part of the country. I find a lot of similarity, like I said, between the techniques in Thai food and Indian cooking. When I said the techniques are similar, yes, they are, but the ingredients vary quite a bit, especially in the middle part of Thailand, where spices are used, but only when they're fresh. And in India, we use spices only when they're dry. This probably is the most difference, or the biggest difference between the two cuisines. And understanding this difference is essential to trying to bring them together. When you start switching out traditional Thai dishes with dry spices and Indian dishes that would traditionally use dry spices with fresh ones, I guess it creates a lot of funny moments and aha moments. And that is how we like to approach, or I like to approach, at least for the time being, till we've exhausted this dissimilarity between the two, I guess, before we move to the next thing, and how we bring the two cuisines together and try to use Thai ingredients as a backdrop to showcase Indian cuisine. This is how we normally do it.
And I think, how about a final question? Do you have any pairing that is on your mind right now?
Yes, oysters and pistachio. I don't know how that's going to work out, but it's been on my mind for some time. And as soon as things settle down, I've been thinking about it a lot. I think we're going to do oysters and pistachio. I don't know what pistachio ice cream or oyster. I don't know what we're going to do, but pistachio and oyster is going to happen very soon. Very excited about that one. There are so many. I have a little red book where I keep writing all these ideas that instinctively come to us. You know, when you're napping, when you're thinking about something else, and wow, I wonder if this would go together. So I guess the next one's going to be oysters and a pistachio. Maybe when the next time you guys come and visit me, it's on the menu, so you know where it started.
I have the feeling that just a few of us are going to go and experiment with this. So
Yeah,
and eventually, hopefully,
you should. Yeah, you should.
having it in your restaurant.
And if it works out, let me know, because yeah, I know I'm going to struggle with this one.
Okay, you guys heard that? If it works out, let us know. Perfect. So I think we should end here. Thank you all of us from around the world for joining us, and thank you so much, Chef Garima. This was amazing. I learned so much, and we'll see you back in Bangkok, I guess.
Absolutely. Hope to see you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you. That was great. It was fantastic.